And I really want people to know that there are people right there in your community that want to help you, but they need to know what you're going through. So build your community, find those people, let them know what you're going through, and then listen to them. Take that moment to hear them and accept their help, because that's one of the harder things to do, is to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to trust that you do.
Trying to be open and keep my head up to words not spoken makes all the difference to me.
How's it going, Hawaii? We're coming at you live from Symphony Honolulu. I'm here with a very special guest. His name is Danny Mayberry, a very close friend of mine and host of the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. Welcome, Danny.
Thanks, Khalil, for having me. Beautiful home.
Thank
Love
you.
the view.
Yeah, me too. Man, how did we meet?
We met at a friend's game night when we were in our early 20s.
I didn't know we were going to get into this story. But
Oh, yeah.
Tell it.
So I was the new kid.
Right? And this is how we became like bosom buddies for life.
We're the same person.
Okay, keep going.
So we were at a game night with some friends, and I was the new kid.
Mm-hmm.
Most people didn't even know my name at the time.
I did not know you. Yeah.
And we were playing a game called Catchphrase, and it was your turn.
Okay.
And you click it, and you look at it, and you go, what people think of me when they first meet me. And
Radio silence, right?
yeah, nobody said anything. And I just go, arrogant, very confidently, and all eyes looked at me, and you look at me, and you go, yes, correct. And then I go, me too. And we high-fived over it, and I think like it's
and then we wept in the corner.
yeah. Why did I think that about me? But no, that was how we met.
Yeah, and then we were close friends.
Yeah.
For a long time after that.
Part of a small group in your house. When I got engaged to my wife, you kind of were there every step of the way, hearing the trials and tribulations of our relationship. And
Oh, it didn't sound like there were too many trials back then.
not so many, but just learning how to be in new relationships and stuff like that comes with its own challenges. And you've always been just great support.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of love for you guys, and so thank you for being a force for good in my life.
Absolutely, it's an honor.
Could you tell me a little bit about your podcast, 1 Mile, 1 Veteran?
Yeah.
Congratulations, you guys are at 75 episodes. Been in operation for a little over a year. Weekly episodes were very hard to do in the podcast space. And I really admire your guys, not only the motivation, which comes from a real genuineness for the veteran community, but also like the hustle that you have as a tag team, husband and wife, you being on camera, and Leanne just really utilizing the skill stack that she's built over the last few years with production in KHON locally in Hawaii, and now reaching the national and global community. How did this podcast start? What was the brainchild?
Yeah, so the idea of the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast is to help prevent veteran suicide. And we do that through storytelling. Veterans come on our show. They share about their experiences that they've had in the military, out of the military, the tools that they've utilized to kind of have successful lives post-service. And then occasionally we have resources on there that also talk about things that are available within the veteran community to help them to the next phase of life, whatever that may be, finding a new job, getting housing, some therapeutic stuff, some not therapeutic stuff. And so we share that in a 20 to 24 minute episode, and that's where the 1 mile part comes in, because it takes on average 20 to 24 minutes to walk a mile, and that's what we ask our listeners to do. Build in healthy habits in their life already, get outside of the house, take captive of every thought, listen to something inspirational, and then afterwards call a friend, because like we're all going to have a dark day. And if you're just used to picking up the phone and having casual conversations and real conversations with people, when your dark day comes, it's so much easier to pick up that phone and say, hey, I have something real, something hard.
Yeah.
And so the inspiration actually comes from my background with my own mental health struggles in and out of service. I've always been trained to ask for help ever since I was a young child. I've been exposed to suicide. First time I was exposed, I was 11 years old, and it was a member of the family, and fortunately enough, they did survive. We got him to the hospital in time. And then I was exposed again several years later. Again, member of the family, we got them the help. But I was always encouraged, ask for help before it gets to that point. And so when I've had near attempts, I've been able to ask for help only because I've done these things. I've already developed healthy habits of clearing my mind, getting in some exercise, getting my belly full, cutting out alcohol and things that make impulsive decisions a lot easier. And then also just being upfront with my community, because that was a part of our background. Is like, I've always been upfront with you about where my headspace is at.
Right.
And it makes it a lot easier to then call somebody and say, hey, like, I'm having a bad day, or I am on the verge of taking my own life. And that's where I was at February 1st, 2020, is I had to have that conversation with my own wife that I was on the verge for no other reason than my mind went there and it became obsessive. And so that was the inception, because these tools were able to save my life and get me to the next day, relieve me of the obsessive thoughts. And so we just wanted to share that with other people. And we spent 2 years planning it because the pandemic occurred. And I was finishing up my master's degree. We managed to buy a home. And then when we wanted to start this portion of our journey, we decided to sell our home. And that's when we reached out to you, making it possible, because we're just, we're able to produce one podcast a week because we quit our jobs, sold our home, and decided to do this full time. And we're going to do this for as long as we can, until the money runs out, or until the mission is complete. And honestly, like, spreading hope, the mission will never be complete. So we're going to do this as long as God will allow us.
That's awesome, man. So what did you do before this? How does somebody get into the full-time podcast life? But not only that, the full-time kind of mission-oriented, this is what we're going to set our life toward. And when I ask people about these types of, like, how did you get into this? A lot of times when we look at our story, like years back, the year before, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years before, we see that we're being prepared for a moment. And what brought you to this place and helped you prepare? You and Leanne helped you to prepare for this moment.
Yeah, so for me, my career in the military, I worked in the medical side. I served alongside Marines in Iraq and Afghanistan, first in emergency care, then in primary medicine. So I was always already providing therapeutic tools, treatment plans for people. So I take that background, and then when I was getting out of the service, I asked my dad, what do I do with my life now? Do I stay in the medical field or what? And he paused for a moment, and he said, "Let me call you tomorrow. I'm gonna go pray about it. Let me call you tomorrow, and we'll talk about it." So I said, "Okay." Hung up the phone. Next day, I call him up, and he said, "I've prayed about it, and I think you should go be an actor." And I was like, that was the kind of response that I had. I was like, "Dad, what are you talking about? I'm 27 years old. I have a career in medicine already. I have a house that I have to take care of. I have responsibility." He goes, you should focus on doing something you're passionate about in this phase of life. You're never going to fail if you follow your passions and focus on giving back. And so that was kind of the path that I had started. He said, like, you were very passionate about acting and performing as a young person. Get back into that life. And so I did start that journey for a few years before meeting my wife, who was already in film production. She was serving at the church that I attended in the film
Media.
Yeah, in the media, what is it, ministry? Yeah. I was trying to think of the church word, the media ministry, and so that started to kind of change my direction, because when I started dating her, I bought a camera and asked her to teach me how to use it.
Good move.
Yeah, take an interest in the things that your loved one is interested in, right? And from that, it ended up building a whole new career while I was going through college. Because I learned how to use the camera. We started getting clients in the photo and video industry, and then eventually that moved her into television. and she started producing locally.
Yeah.
I started working communications with government organizations and
Wow.
developing messaging and doing photos and videos for them. And, so our skill sets just continued to grow. And eventually there just came a time where we had to decide on what we were going to do. And that's when in 2022, I came down with a medical emergency. We lost a really close friend 6 months prior, and we just said, time is too short
Yeah.
to continue to plan, so we're just going to move forward in this direction.
That's one of the things that I really admire about you and Leanne. You were never really chasing whatever the world had out there, right? It's bottom line, profit, money. Whenever I would talk to you, you've always been consistent over the last, how long have we known each other? 15?
Well, we met almost, yeah, about 12
over the last 15 years. And I've seen you make choices, life-altering choices. And it was never to make more money or get rich or anything like that. And you've seen me through multiple phases of my life. You've seen me in the phases where I was after it. I was after profit margin. I was after money. And when I was in that space, I would look at you and like, I don't know if that's like the right move. But that was me looking through my lens, my worldly lens. And now when I look at you, it doesn't seem like the wrong thing at all. It doesn't ever seem like it was the wrong thing. It was the wrong move. You've been moving in the direction of the things that you're passionate about. You've been moving in the direction of the design that God created you with, and that's super admirable. So I'm grateful to witness the journey and see you move along in the design, and also see the ways that God, for some viewers, the universe, if you want to call it, the just things life orchestrates in a strange way in response, but also life has been calling you to that, to these actions and to these good deeds, right? So it's kind of like a dance, I guess.
I really appreciate that. Like, because a lot of people do see our lives and they would think it's absolutely nuts. We sold our home, our beautiful home in Hawaii. We quit our jobs. We have no way to replace that income just yet. And it's not the first time that I've made this decision. Like the decision to get out of the military and leave that stable paycheck.
Right.
Knowing that I'm still going to live in Hawaii, have no clue how I'm going to make it financially. And I was told to just do the next right thing.
Yeah.
The money will come.
Yeah.
And the money's always come, and I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
But it shows up in the most random of ways. And I don't make these decisions on my own. Like these decisions that Leanne and I choose to go down, we are not the ones that are having kind of the final say so, because we have a council of people that we've trusted for well over a decade in our lives that say, hey, these are the things that we're thinking. What do you think? And with this decision, all of our council of people have never once said that this is not what we should be doing. And they've also said, like, you can never fail at it either. One of the things that we are truly blessed with right now in our lives is we don't have children. So we don't have to make decisions that are going to affect the next generation in our life. And so we have the freedom to couch surf. We have the freedom to live in different areas of the world. And, Hawaii's can be expensive depending on where you're living. And so part of our cost cutting methods that we did is when we sold our house, we left the island for the first year, and we're still on the road in that first year. We'll be coming back this spring. But we've been living for less than $1,000 a month in rent. We've lived in places like Greece and France and Egypt and the UK, and now we're going to live in Canada.
You sent me pictures. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is about Mars Hill, right, where Paul goes up and talks to the I don't know what the word for it is, but basically the what's the name of that place? Mars Hill?
Leanne. Areopagus.
Yeah. And so there was this guy Dionysius, right? And he was converted to Christianity at Areopagus. And at the time you were in Greece, I was studying this guy's life. And I had asked you, could you take a picture from Areopagus and send it to me? And you did.
Oh yeah, no, it's an absolute like wonderful thing to be able to do this full time. We have incredible guests on the show. My wife, coming from television production, she knows how to reach out to people and get them to say yes to coming on. We can produce remotely anywhere in the world, which has been really, really great because that's kind of always been our goal, is to be able to be where God is calling us to be. And so sometimes that's we've been in the deserts of Arizona with people that needed us there at the time. We've been back out here in Hawaii when friends and family have needed us. And we're just really grateful to be able to answer the call wherever it leads.
Speaking of reaching out to guests, one of my favorite episodes of yours was when Scott Cartvet was on. Can you tell us about, well, one, okay, so for those of you who don't know, he was the stunt pilot for Tom Cruise, right? Top Gun Maverick. And so a lot of people, when they see those, excuse me, I have to cough. When they see these the movies, they think it's CGI. It's totally not. It's totally Scott in that plane. One, how did you get him to be on your podcast?
So with Scott specifically, a former supervisor who used to work for the Blue Angels when he was a junior officer, knew Scott personally, and I guess they had a very like pranking relationship when they were younger men, and so he reached out to us and saying, "Hey, I've got my buddy Scott. He works in veteran suicide prevention with the Blue Angels Foundation.
Wow,
and he's got a great message. And by the way, he was just in Maverick as one of the pilots." And so he goes, "Would you mind if I put you two in contact and maybe you can interview him?" And so, we went and we looked at his stuff, and then we were like, absolutely. Like, let's have this guy on. He's a terrific speaker. He's doing amazing things. And one of the most incredible things about his journey was he's been chasing dreams his entire life and achieving them. Like, he's this guy from, I believe he's just this guy from the Northeast, right? Yeah, so he's just this, oh no, he's from California. I apologize. He's just a guy that, like, he went and saw Top Gun in the 80s with his best friends and said, like, I'm going to do that one day.
Wow. Full circle.
Full circle. And so he graduated college. His buddy that he went and saw it with said, I just joined the Air Force to be a fighter pilot. Are you with me? And he looked at his girlfriend at the time. He goes, yeah, let's do it. And so he joined. His girlfriend or wife at the time gave him a photo of the Blue Angels, and on the back said, continue to follow your dreams. And he eventually became a Blue Angel pilot. When he got out, he didn't really know what he was going to do. He did what a lot of veterans do, is they find the next right job that can provide for their lifestyle. And like a lot of veterans, when they first get out, those first 2 or 3 jobs, they end up not sticking with because it doesn't fill what it is that they were looking for. And so he had somebody reach out, a former Air Force Thunderbird, which is also a stunt pilot industry, reach out and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this veteran stunt pilot organization? And he checked with his wife, and she said, I think you should go do it. Like, get back into something that you love. Yeah. Continue to chase your dreams. And so he did. And as a result of that, he got invited to be one of the stunt pilots on Maverick. And now he is continuing to work on other projects in Hollywood.
That's so cool. How did he get into veteran suicide awareness?
So veteran suicide has been a known thing for well over a decade. There's an old statistic that came out that said 22 veterans a day die by suicide. And awareness campaigns helped reduce that number. And as research continues to go into suicide research, the number fluctuates. But ever since those initial awareness campaigns came about, a lot of organizations were developed to address the issue. A lot of people wanted to get involved in stopping this because we served along these people. They sacrificed so much and they're just not making it out of life alive. And so one of those organizations happened to be the Blue Angels Foundation, and this was one of their biggest mission callings. And that's actually why he said yes to us, because one of the tools that we provide are those real life skills of break up the thoughts and call a friend. Get outside, raise your endorphins. We give simple tools that aren't necessarily going to lead you into permanent mental health treatment, but to be able to just get through a moment in time that is hard, because it's really easy to go down the other rabbit hole, and a lot of veterans are afraid, and a lot of first responders are afraid. When they ask for help, they may end up in the hospital. They may end up losing status. They may end up losing something in their life.
Right.
And so they don't ask for help, and the issue continues to go on. And so these other veteran organizations that have risen up are just like, we have other outlets for you. You don't have to necessarily go the route of professional care unless you feel like that's something for you specifically. And Blue Angel Foundation funds a lot of those organizations, especially in the suicide awareness and suicide prevention field.
That's awesome. One of the things I love about the name of your organization is that the message is so simple. 1 mile, 1 vet. And in today's sedentary lifestyle society, it's like, we're not walking. We're not walking nearly enough. We're not walking. We choose to drive to a supermarket a quarter mile away. Well, I guess most of it has to do with actually having to carry the groceries home. But man, I think back to times in my life when I reached out to you for help. And I'm so grateful that you started the work around a time when I really needed somebody to talk to. And I remember when nothing in my life felt like it was going good. Nothing felt good. Nothing could take pain away. And there were nights when I would wake up early in the morning, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I would just walk, whether it was in the house, whether it was outside the house. And weirdly enough, I would say to myself in my mind, it feels good to walk. It feels good to walk. And we were recalling off camera that, at a time in your life when nothing feels good and you feel like nothing will ever go good, for me to engage in an activity where my mind tells me like this feels good, it's so profound, and it's so simple, and it's so available to so many people.
Yeah, but it's also so hard. Like, life is really, really simple, but that does not make it easy at all. And by simple, I mean simple things like going for a walk is so simple, but so often people say, I don't have 20 minutes for myself. I've got all of these responsibilities to take care of. I've got all these problems. I can't even take a break. And that's really when, you need that break. You need to prioritize some self-care. And self-care can be as simple as taking a walk, but it's so hard. Self-care can be as simple as developing a friend that you talk to on a regular basis. But sometimes it's so hard. I have people in my life that, for no other reason than it slips my mind, I don't talk to for months at a time, to include family members.
Yeah.
And it's not because there's any anger or bad blood or anything like that. But then I look at somebody like my wife, who she speaks with her mom on a near daily basis. Wow. And when there's a hard day, nothing has ever gotten to the point where she's needed that pressure relieved, and that ability to open up and say, this is going on in my life and this is hard. But so many people, we don't talk about the day-to-day difficulties with another person because we're strong. We can handle it. I don't want to be a burden. That's a very common thing. I don't want to be a burden to somebody else. But if somebody loves you, there's no way that you can ever be a burden.
Another thing that I really admire about you is the humility that I feel like you've been able to live in and to live and move in. And I think part of it has to do with just the acceptance of the powerless state of being human.
I'm incredibly fortunate that that I've been exposed to people that are alcoholics when I was younger, because I got to see the path that could lead people down. And so for me, when I was in my later 20s and came back from my third combat tour and recognized that I was drinking too much, I said, oh, I need to fix this problem. Like, this is a potential future problem, not knowing that I was actually living the problem during the time. And so I reached out to my chain of command in the Navy, and they were incredibly supportive, and they told me to take care of myself, to take the treatment, and I did. But part of that journey was incredibly hard because it involved getting sober, and I didn't know what that meant in my life. And what that meant for me was that I had already progressed to the point where I had alcohol dependence and needed inpatient treatment for it. And part of the treatment is admitting our powerlessness. Like, that's the very first part. Because I looked at my life and I had an amazing life. I loved my job. I was making rank in the Navy early, nearly every time. I had men that sought advice from me. They sought marital advice. They sought financial advice. These were things that I never grew up with, never thought I'd be in a position with, because I grew up very poor and food insecure and constantly moving around. And like, I grew up with nothing, and I thought I would always amount to nothing as a young person. And so to look at my life and say that there was a problem with the way that I was living my life was not connecting for a very long time. So like, I would continue to make decisions and take charge of my life. And that's what eventually led me into treatment and nearly led me to suicide on 2 different occasions.
Wow.
And once I had that realization that it was me taking charge of my own life and making these decisions in a silo, making them by myself for my career, for my family, for my finances, not consulting with anybody else because I'm strong enough and look at what I've accomplished. Like, it took a lot to say my thoughts, even though they've led to such like great success, they've also led me to death's door.
Yeah.
And in order to live, I needed to give up my life. I needed to give all of that up. And that's an incredibly hard thing to do for anybody. And some of the people that we talk to outside of the podcast on the personal level, because we do talk to people on a regular basis, they call us up, they sit us down, we meet with them regularly. And there's a very common theme that a lot of people are still trying to run their own lives, but it's running them ragged. They're so tired. And so, you know, part of my powerlessness is giving up control of my own life and saying, okay, God, you've got it. And you've put people in my life that are going to help me get there. But I also have to test like my motivations with those people in my life, because like, if we had a transactional relationship, we wouldn't be sitting on this couch together at this point. You know what I mean? Like, if I was like, Kaleo, you're in my life because of what you can offer me.
Right.
Like, we would not be the friends that we are. You know, like, you probably wouldn't have called me in times of distress, and me to you, right? Like, I wouldn't have called you if you were just after me for me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, part of that journey of recovery and working through a step program led me to this point where, like, I have no power in this world. People are going to do what people are going to do, and I need to be accepting of them. Money's going to come and go, and I need to be accepting of that.
Right.
Because there's so much in this world that's beyond our control. The only thing that I control is doing the next right thing that I know to be true for my life.
Mm-hmm. And it's working.
Right?
I love seeing you guys do it. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on is there are ways that you are looking to increase your reach, right?
Yeah.
As a podcast. I do want to congratulate you. 75 episodes, that's really hard in the podcast space. I think you rattled off some interesting statistics. Would you care to share them with us?
Yeah, so there was an article that I was reading. I forget who it was written by, but it says that there's roughly 3 to 4 million podcasts in existence.
Okay.
Of that, 44% have around less than 3 episodes.
Okay.
Period. Of that, around 700,000 have around 10 episodes,
Okay.
and only 156,000 are producing weekly episodes. So it's a very small number of podcasts do what we do because it's a time commitment. Like, you're doing it. This is a big time commitment. There's a financial investment.
Costs money. Yeah.
Costs
It's
a
not
lot of
free.
money, and the money doesn't come quick. This is a very slow and arduous process because you have to build the audience.
Yeah.
And then that's when people will start giving you money, is if you build the audience or
Right.
you find other people that are donating. And because we are trying to raise money for other nonprofits, we chose not to be a nonprofit ourselves.
Okay.
So it's not like people are donating to us for this program because we want to be accessible to everyone. You're not a veteran. If we were a nonprofit, we wouldn't be able to provide services if you reached out.
Wow.
But because we're just our own private company, we can talk to whoever we want to. We can offer resources that would fit your needs, regardless of whether you're a first responder, a civilian, or a veteran. It's like, hey, we know these organizations that are available for you. Let's point you in that direction if you need it.
That's awesome.
And so funding for us comes over time. And this past month, my wife, who's a terrific regionally Emmy nominated producer of television, secured for us a spot on an organization called Wreaths Across America Radio.
Okay.
They have an annual program where they lay wreaths on the tombstones of service members within all the national parks. A huge volunteer nonprofit. And they also have a radio station that we are now a part of twice a week, which is incredible, which increases our audience tenfold from what we currently have.
And that wouldn't have happened if you guys didn't take the risk and start moving in the direction of what you felt you were called to do.
Yeah. And so we are looking right now to continue to expand that risk, but we need sponsors to start sponsoring the shows so that we can start buying advertising space for our show specifically.
If somebody, so I believe in the vision, I believe in the mission. If someone's watching or listening and they also believe in the vision and the mission, how can they come alongside and support you guys?
So they can reach out to us and offer to sponsor a show, a month's worth of show. We have different sponsorship packages available, and they're
Great.
tailored to meet whatever your need is. So, like, let's say you are here in Hawaii, right? And you're trying to reach the military audience, but we're a national level podcast. How many people from Hawaii? Well, the beautiful thing with digital marketing is that we can buy ad space just directed towards Hawaii residents. And so all of that money that we would have would go towards growing an audience here in Hawaii specifically.
Okay.
And specifically because we target veterans, that's who we would be applying it towards.
That's
As
awesome.
opposed to just saying, hey, you know, I'm John the plumber and I really want to work with military veterans. Let me run my own ad and my own commercial. You come on you become a sponsor. We say the ad for you. People know that you're involved in this issue that's near and dear to a lot of military first responders. And now you are showing that you're contributing to our community, making it more likely that people would want to purchase your services.
And I think they might be watching and they might say, like, okay, Danny and Leanne, they do this podcast, but I do want to highlight the fact that your work with suicide prevention and suicide awareness goes beyond what we see on camera, right?
Yeah.
You have relationships across the nation. Could you tell us a little bit about the behind the camera work or off camera work that you guys are doing as a couple?
Absolutely. So with suicide prevention, it's not just a veteran issue. It's a national crisis in America. It's one of the leading causes of deaths, especially in people ages 12 to 35.
Okay.
Like, let's just pause and think about the kids that are also a part of this. So we meet up with people that are raising awareness for teen suicide prevention.
Okay.
We meet up with different veterans in different countries and talk with them about the issues. Some of our episodes even highlight some people from Australia as well as Canada, because this is a collective thing that is happening. And some of the work that we're trying to do right now is raise up walking groups within each state. Our first one should be starting soon in Arizona. There's a veteran out there that's been a listener since we launched. And as a result of him listening, he's actually gotten involved in suicide prevention nonprofits in his own area. He said, wow, I can be a part of this, because he's not qualified to work according to his disability status.
Okay.
And he was isolating a lot in his own house. And when he found out what we were doing, he goes, I can do something too. I can make an impact. And so now he speaks for a nonprofit in his area about suicide prevention in the state of Arizona. And he's hopefully, we're in talks with him starting his own walking group and taking people out on different hikes and stuff like that of his own volition. Because community should be free and accessible to all. And that's what we're in the process of building, is these communities that are taking care of their own communities.
I remember when you talked about quitting your job to devote toward this mission, it wasn't just about a podcast, but you wanted to leave room for people who needed help to call you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most rewarding things for me, is there are people that have my number, and they call me directly, and not having to work a full-time job right now allows me to be available to pick up the phone and sometimes show up in person if I'm able to get there, or call somebody in that area and say, hey, John needs some assistance. Can you go over there and just sit with him? You don't need to give him advice. Just sit with him, because sometimes we just need to talk. We just need to let it out. And if possible, like, let's do something smart. If John has a weapon, like, let's just secure that for him for a moment. Like, there's nothing wrong with making sure that that's locked away, and maybe John's not getting drunk, because those right there open up the ability to behave impulsively, having easy access to drugs, alcohol, weapons, because suicide sometimes happens in an instant. It's not a planned thing for a lot of people. Yeah. And so, like, let's remove that ability to be impulsive during a crisis. And that's what friends are able to do. I was able to make sure that one of my friends that had called me in the midst of a crisis was able to get immediate support, but never ended up in an institution. There was nothing that was so bad in their life that they needed professional intervention, because sometimes communities just need to be there for one another.
That's good. So we know some of the watch signs, some of the red flags, some of the negative things to look out for. But what are some positive things? I know we're talking about walking and talking, community. What role does stable housing have in reducing risk factors?
Yeah, so when we're talking about suicide and depression and mental health issues, are usually linked around increased stress.
Okay.
And so you think of somebody that's having housing insecurity, their stress level's going up. Maybe they just lost a job. Their stress level is going up. Maybe they got taken advantage of by a predatory lender, and now their mortgage is not able to be covered by their paycheck because an unexpected expense happened. Like, with the VA home loan, sometimes it allows us to overextend ourselves.
Wow.
Because we can have a higher threshold of debt to income ratio as veterans, because it's guaranteed by the VA home loan. And some lenders know that, and some lenders will take advantage of that. And if somebody doesn't necessarily have that stress tolerance, they become an increased risk of suicidal behaviors, unstable housing, job loss, relationship loss.
Wow.
These are all increased risk factors of suicide. And so not just being aware that these are risk factors, but being proactive about being able to address them, right, as a community. So, like, let's make sure that John has a house, that he is always able to, like, for my wife and I right now, we are currently houseless, but we have people that we can call.
That's right.
And say, hey, we need some lodging while we're in your area. And people open up their doors and they open up a spare bedroom and we're able to have housing. There's so many communities, there's so many people in the community that can provide that. Or, you know, I know that you, being as plugged into the real estate out here in Hawaii, are able to say, okay, what's your budget? What are you looking at? Maybe home buying isn't for you right now, but, like, let's find stable renting for you. Right. And there's programs like US Vets out on the west side of the island that even does that for people experiencing temporary houselessness, not just permanent housing loss. And that's one of the ways that they address suicide, is by making sure that veterans who are in between jobs or have lost a house due to an emergency are also able to get back into residency and reduce that particular risk factor, reduce that stress level, so that they can focus on other things to continue to improve their health.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If somebody's watching or listening that needs some encouragement today, is there anything that you'd like to say to them?
Absolutely. And that's a question that I always ask on the show. What's a message of hope that we could spread? And I really want people to know that there are people right there in your community that want to help you, but they need to know what you're going through. So build your community, find those people, let them know what you're going through, and then listen to them. Take that moment to hear them and accept their help, because that's one of the harder things to do, is to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to trust that you do. And so that would be my word of encouragement, is there's people in your community that know what to do and want to help you.
One of the most impactful things that you'd said to me when I was going through a really hard time was, you know, when someone's struggling and they need to talk it out, right? And a lot of the talking is assumptions, right? Just about what my life is going to be from here on out, or what the future is, or what hopelessness, right? Just stating some kind of hopelessness. And I remember I said something to you. I forget what I said, but you said with conviction, you looked me in the eye and you said, "You don't know that. You don't know that."
Yeah. I think you had actually mentioned something about, what are people going to think of me?
Yeah.
I think it was something along those lines
Yeah.
of reputation, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing with a lot of people, especially military people that have done really well in life, is they experience that type of adversity that you experienced, and automatically people are going to think this about me. We don't know what the future holds,
Right.
but we know that it'll get better if you get to tomorrow.
Yeah. And what did you say? One breath at a time.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all we have.
One breath at a time. Don't even talk about the day. Don't even talk about the year, right? Just, how about this one? And nothing lasts forever.
Nothing lasts forever at all.
So I'm very grateful to you, my friend. Thank you for doing what you do and being faithful to the calling that you've received, and for believing enough to act on what you feel like God has called you to do.
I appreciate that, Cleo.
Yeah.
Really do, bro.
I don't really know how to wrap up a show. How do you wrap up a show?
How do I wrap a show up a show? Thank you. Oh, yeah. How do people connect?
Thanks,
so
Leanne.
For those that do want to connect with me, go to onemileoneveteran.com. You can find any information that you need about me or our program there. You can find out if you want to partner with us, if you want to sponsor with us, if you just want to get in contact with us. Go to onemileoneveteran.com. And then I think it's just, thank you so much for being on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the High Realty Podcast. Basically, it's just talking to people and going through the experience of life with genuineness and coming from a place of wanting to serve the community. So thanks for inviting me into the vision. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of what you guys are doing. And aloha for now.